Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the Collective Evolution Podcast. As always, your host, Joe Martino. It's going to be a good episode because we're going to get into the event, which is something that a lot of people are talking about in the, I guess you could say, the spiritual consciousness community, that sort of thing. Really looking at an alleged mass event, whether it be energetic, whether it be like, there's people have been talking about it where, ships are going to come down and take away people and all these different, there's so many different ways. And we'll get into all the different ideas that people are talking about here. But we're going to be talking about that event and some of the key aspects to this that I think are just so important to talk about because in my opinion, humanity's following a trend that it has followed so many times in the past. And I think it's time for a little bit of a wake-up call. But before we get into that, if you love this podcast, want to support this podcast, and want to support everything that we're doing at Collective Evolution, please consider supporting our Conscious Media Movement campaign. You can visit that page at explorers.collective-evolution.com/CMM. You can also find it just by going to collectiveevolution.com and then hitting the donate button in the menu. But essentially, this page and this campaign is our transparency to you to say, look, here's how we've been earning money. Here's how that has changed. Here's how we're going to be earning money into the future. And the biggest way we're going to be doing that is focusing on community support, coming together as a community to secure the future of conscious media, to make sure that this stays there, because we all know what's happening within mainstream media right now, within the shutdown of independent media, trying to silence the voices. The only thing that's really going to keep that going is by us becoming vigilant within ourselves, supporting what it is that we like, and going and directly just viewing and sharing that stuff. We can no longer rely on social media, and we can't rely on ad budgets anymore because it just doesn't do the trick anymore. Support in that has been great so far. Much appreciation to all those who have jumped in and said, hey, you know what? I want to see Collective Evolution continue. If you're one of those people, please head on over to explorers.collective-evolution.com and become a supporter and join this conscious media movement, which is super duper important. As you know, and as you'll see by listening to this podcast, let's get right into it. Let's get right into the event. So if you've heard about this, you likely heard about it from an article, a vlog, some sort of conversation, perhaps, and maybe at some sort of spiritual event or consciousness-based event, or someone was just chatting about it. I wrote an article about this. It was 8 months ago, March 22nd, 2018. And there's a few more things I wanted to talk about and add to this discussion, which is why I'm doing this podcast now, to take things to another level. Because, when it comes to this, like I mentioned earlier, there's trends, there's repetitions that I see happening. And I believe, and I'm going to pull this up. I'm going to pull this up right now. I believe it's time for us to make some adjustments in how we have been living and being for the past while. And one of the best ways that I explain that, it's actually through kind of a joke. I got to make a meme out of this at one point, but I made this thing, sort of like the phases of the consciousness or spiritual community movement, whatever you want to call it. I mean, you don't really need to box it. It's just something to reflect on is ultimately what I'm going to post up or put out here. But essentially, it looks at the various trends, ways of being, ways that we've lived, the different little things that have happened within the movement. Again, coming from a trendy point of view, right? Like when we jump on trends as opposed to the authentic, deep aspect, which is what we do so much here at CE, is we push for that deep work, not the trendy, like, hey, I'm spiritual, so I clear myself with sage now, and because I do that, there's no other work I need to do because I'm clearing away the energies with sage, and that's all I need to do because that's all the witches online told me I need to do, and la da da da, right? So that's the trendy stuff. We're talking about getting to the deep stuff, and one of the things I got to bring up here is the phases of this movement that I've seen for the past 10 or 11 years. As I started to get into this and explore this and then, become a bigger part of it through Collective Evolution and creating that and having that grow and build and having the opportunity to talk to a lot of different people. But I broke it down like this. Between 2009 and 2011, what I observed was everyone was basically like, yeah, everything's rainbows, everything's butterflies, everything's love and light. That was like the big trend at the time, the way everybody viewed everything. Oh, it's just love and light, and it's all just this, fluffy duffy sort of spiritual stuff. And oh, it's rainbows and butterflies. Don't worry about anything. Don't say anything else. Just focus on that. If you just focus on everything being love and light, it'd be great, And then after that trend sort of wore off, as we were getting into the later parts of 2011 and into 2012, all of a sudden it was like 2012 is the focus. Like, oh my God, when December 21st, 2012 comes, it is going to change everything. So everybody just sit back, grab a cup of tea and enjoy the ride, because essentially everything is going to change after 2012. Now take note of that trend. It was sit back and just relax, because everything's just going to take care of itself. 2012 came and went, and everyone realized, hey, nothing really happened. I guess that was that visible. I mean, sure, certain things did happen. We talked about that a lot in our second documentary, but it wasn't like a super visual, like, oh, all of a sudden everything just suddenly changed. So then we move into 2013 and 2015. And in there, all of a sudden, it was like, hold on a second. We can only talk about positive things. This was like the rise of like the personal development movement in a trendier way, right? So obviously personal development work, self-help work, been around for a long time. But this really rose to like now everyone was talking about it. Everyone was writing blogs about it. Everyone was like running some sort of seminar or something on it. And so from 2013 to 2015, it was only talk about or say positive things. If you say or do anything else that's not rainbows and butterflies, it's negative, it hurts you, and it hurts the world. Don't focus on anything else, just positivity, nothing else. And, that obviously only lasted for a certain amount of time until people realized, okay, that didn't really lead anywhere either. So that head us into 2016 to 2018, where all of a sudden, and it's funny because I actually called this, I was at an event, Conscious Media Festival, and I said, I had actually been saying this before that, but I said it publicly, I think, for the first time at the event. I was talking about how essentially consciousness, this idea of consciousness, exploring, awakening, all that sort of stuff would become pop culture very soon. And it would either go in one of two directions. Either it would go in a very authentic direction where people are like, it's really just about living it and being it and acting it and not worrying about trying to prove it to people. Or it would go in the direction of becoming really trendy and really cool, where all of a sudden it's like, whoa, this person's woke. This is where the whole woke thing came from. And this started to spread around everywhere. It's like, oh, yeah, this person's woke. Oh, this person's woke. And nobody really even knew what that meant. So you got 2016 to 2018. It's now trendy and cool to be woke or conscious. So now this is my new identity, even though I have no idea what that actually means. That was kind of like the trend of this whole thing. And, obviously, you see what I'm getting at here as we've gone through, because I have a prediction here for 2019. But, we see what we're getting at. What we're getting at and how this relates to the event is we're seeing various trends and various searches and various things that happen when we explore a lot of this stuff in a way that isn't truly authentic to ourselves, where we truly dive deep and do the work. Instead, we're kind of just looking at it from a surface level, like, oh yeah, if I talk this way, it's kind of, I'm part of it. If I be this way, I'm part of it. And so many people ask, why haven't things changed yet? Why haven't things happened? What happened with 2012? That was a waste of time. Nothing happened, right? Because everybody's sitting back, right? For the most part, we're sitting back and just waiting for things to happen. Or we're jumping on the trendy coolness of suddenly wearing parachute pants and waving sage around and, walking around with crystals, which none of those things are wrong. You can do any of those things. But the trend of that has overtaken the actual work of exploring self. And this is the issue. And this is why my thing for 2019, what I've been saying that I believe we're going to see, I will say for probably at least a year, if not more, but it's essentially ends like this. I realize that the last 10 years got me here, but now it's time to drop all the silly stuff and actually do the spiritual work to change myself and thus change the world. Neutrality is the key. And why do I add that last part in there about neutrality being the key? Because right now you're seeing an incredibly polarized state of being amongst a lot of people. And, you see this a lot in the United States, for example, because it just happens to be a political place right now where the mirror that is coming up at illustrating the collective consciousness of the United States is happening through politics, right? You're seeing two extremes. Everybody's super divided. Everybody's getting super angry. Everybody's identifying so strongly with so many aspects of themselves that isn't truly them. And when I say everybody, I got to be fair. It isn't everybody. It's just a good chunk of people. It's a lot of people, and it's perpetuated by the media, obviously. Social media gets in there when you see all these memes, all these late night TV shows just poking fun and doing all this stuff, right? It all adds to that, and it makes it actually feel like it's everybody, when in reality it's not. It's just a large chunk of people. But, it goes on to this whole thing of like, when are we going to realize, right, that we got to do the work if we want change? Right. And so you have this polarity that's coming up really, really deeply in the United States. Super, high amounts of polarity, especially in the political realm. And even the spiritual crowd, if you want to call it that, the conscious crowd, is getting sucked right in, is falling right into that as well. Instead of stepping back and saying, hey, look, we're realizing what is playing out. Trump is representing various aspects of collective consciousness. So do other politicians. And in a lot of ways, they're showing you how you actually are in your own way. Not all of us, but most of us actually operate. And one of the ways that I always talk about that is like, here you have Trump doing things that are very in line with being over patriotic about his country, right? And when I say his country, I mean the country he's from, the country he lives in, that sort of thing, right? We identify with that. But where do we all do that exact same thing? Where we identify extremely with our country. We fight with people about whose country's better, whose team should win because based on the country, this country, that, blah, 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 my country, this, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. It's like he's just one big example of that. Even further, it's like he's talking a lot about, the migrant crisis and immigration and stuff. He's like, he believes, we got to take care of America first. We got to do that first. We got to do that first. And it's like, well, hold on. Where do people do that exact same thing in their own lives? Oh, I'll take care of my kid and my family first before I take care of anybody else. Why the heck do we blame one person for one side of it when really it's reflecting on a macro scale the same way we operate within ourselves, right? And this is the thing, is what we're seeing in the political arena in a big way is extremes that aren't allowing people to recognize the true core of what's going on within people. And then we're trying to find all these ways and all these isms to attach to people, most of which are fabricated by media, completely fabricated by media, to attach to people so that we can call them names. Because when we call them names, we suddenly don't actually have to look at what's going on, nor do we have to look at what's going on within ourselves. We could just call someone a name. And this is why so many activists today are walking around in the modern feminist movement, in all this gender stuff, in a lot of these political movements, all of these extremes that are happening. Not all of them are extreme, but a lot of it is very extreme. Antifa, let's get into all that stuff, right? And you're seeing nobody knows what they're actually talking about or what they're actually working towards. A lot of it is talking points that have no basis in truth, or they're very, very, very weak arguments. Yet in reality, there are actually very big issues that exist within every single one of those sort of activist arenas that are real, that we need to be talking about, that we need to be observing and we need to be moving through. But nobody talks about it because we're unsure of how to actually talk about these very real things. Instead, we enjoy talking about things that it's just easy to say, well, this person's a misogynist and this person's a racist and this person, has some sort of xenophobic views and this, that, whatever. It's like, it's easier to just box somebody with something. It's much harder to actually want to understand where it is that we're really coming from. And this is why a lot of this stuff is happening. So when I say 2019 is about getting authentic, we're already starting to see this. You're already starting to see more and more people realize, like, holy shit, like this past 10 years, we just went in circles. We did nothing. Obviously there was value to it in that we got to see where leading with our minds, leading with our ego really leads us. There's still perfection there. We didn't necessarily have to take that route, but we did. We chose to take that route as a collective, and that's okay. There's no judgment here. But now we're going to come to a point, and we're coming to that point where it's like, all right, This is about being authentic. Let me drop all these identities about what activist group I belong to, what political side I belong to. Let's drop all this crap. Let's get to the real core. What is going on in my life? Why do I feel the way I do? Who's responsible, which is obviously ourselves, for why certain things happen in our lives? And how can we shift the way we're living as an individual to ultimately affect the collective, and begin looking at the situations that are happening around our lives and saying, what is the real cause of why this is taking place? Not some basic sort of, they're racist or this or that or whatever, right? Which is usually not the case. Let's actually dive deep into what's going on, right? And have the discernment when we see news, when we see trends happening, to ask what's really going on, because that's important, and that's how we're going to get to the core. And so how the event ties into this is, the event, for those who don't know, is essentially this thing where people are talking about, for lack of a better word, an event that is going to take place, where it could be like a massive cosmic energy, for example, that could cause a big stream of light to come across the planet, that could cause X amount of days of darkness, or could cause ETs to come down and take away certain people. It could cause, for example, the arrest of the cabal, the resetting of the financial system, the disclosure of ETs, aliens coming down to the planet, revelations of new advanced technologies, new government and political systems, all just starting to pop up as a result of this one event that's going to suddenly take place. Now, the thing that I find interesting about this is, a lot of it comes, again, from the central sun, talking about the central sun of the universe, outside of our galaxy. So our galaxy has obviously a sun called the sun, and outside of that, there would be a central sun that governs other galaxies. And if you understand, again, I did a lot of research on this. When I did Collective Evolution 3, The Shift, we looked at sunspot cycles, and we looked at how all of those things came to be and how they affect humanity, how they affect consciousness. And when you get into that, you start to realize that, the sun is, in essence, an evolver of human consciousness, and it affects human consciousness. It also affects human DNA. That's been observed. So you can start to understand that if there's a central sun that is sending, in essence, cosmic information or energy-based information, essentially it's just cosmic rays, right? That's really what this is at a base level of talking about it. If it's sending that, and that is evolving, the central sun is evolving our sun or our planets that are in our immediate galaxy here, then you could understand that an evolution in the central sun could cause an evolution in our sun and the planets around us, which would cause an evolution within ourselves. So the idea that we'd have upgrades within these portals or within these suns or within these cosmic bodies that are sending out energies, and those energies affect cosmic bodies around them, it's not far-fetched to think that, given we've observed so much with how much the sun affects our lives, this could very well create a change. But is it all going to happen on one day? Is it all going to happen like, boom, boom, there's the event, it happened, ding, dong, dong, done, finished, I don't know. You ask the question, does that resonate with you? Does that make sense within you? Does that feel right to you? Or does it sound like the same type of distraction that we get caught up in, and that ultimately pulls us away from having a focus on ourselves, which is the answer to how we create change? Does this not just pull us away into some other thing that we're waiting on forever? And it's the same information from the same channelers that we hear year in, year out, and over and over and over again. I don't mean to burst any bubble here, but I have been hearing channelings as of 11 years ago, and the exact same stuff is coming through different or the same channelers, quote unquote, now that it was 11 years ago. Why are we hearing the exact same information, the exact same stuff, the same, this is happening, the cabal is going to be defeated tomorrow, and this big wave is going to come, and all this stuff? It's repetitive. It's the same thing over and over again. Why does this happen? Right? Now, part of it could be, we're all hearing what we need to hear to go on the journey of understanding what we aren't so that we can eventually understand what we are. And through that, we get all caught up in this exploring of, this thing's going to happen, this thing's going to happen. We go down that road, and then, a year later we realize, hey, you know what? it never did happen. Was that the truth? I mean, yeah, it was what I needed to understand at the time, but am I ready to go deeper and understand now what it actually is and what's actually going on and begin doing the work? In the event, looking at this alleged thing that's going to happen where this energy is going to come and change everything all at once, and suddenly we're going to see all the things that we want, the arrest of the cabal, the new financial systems, new technologies, everything coming, to look at it more realistically within how things unfold and how things change. And it doesn't mean we need to spend 100 years evolving here. It's more so, is it not that when we shift collective consciousness by taking action, again, we're here to experience. We're here to actually learn to be empowered and to take action. We do not learn empowerment when something comes and saves us. If this event is the savior, in the same way people have said extraterrestrials are going to be the savior, then we don't learn anything. We're not truly empowered. And these are some of the ways that you can understand and learn how to sort of cut through some of the bullshit that's out there that allows people to get caught up in these ideas. Now, this isn't to say that there aren't cosmic energies and cosmic things happening and potentially some extraterrestrial collaboration that's going to take place to some extent. But it is not going to do all, nor even the majority of the work. We have to do that. That's why there's been a hands-off policy for so long with extraterrestrials where they didn't come in and intervene and do things, because we're going through an evolution. We're learning to do this. We're learning to stand on our own 2 feet as humans. We have to work through our own stuff. It's not for someone to come down and say, hey, you know what? This whole time, you've actually been doing this political system and it's really silly. And look how you guys are all fighting and you're dumb. You know, you're just dumb idiots. So here's a model. Watch me going to pop in this videotape and you're going to learn how to do it properly. So, you know, thanks. And, you know, we'll see you later. And then we all watch the videotape and we're like, oh, you know, we could have did it that way. Oh, I get it. Yeah. Okay. No, right? What's going to happen is we have to explore, and this is what is happening. We have to explore within ourselves. Why are we doing the things that we're doing? Why do we individually do what we do? And why do we do what we do collectively? And doesn't the collective seem to match in a big way what we do on a micro level, what we do individually? And therefore, if we shift ourselves individually and stop getting distracted with all these things that keep us waiting for the next day, the next month, the next year, the next event, stop getting distracted with all that and bring it back to here, bring it back to now. How can I create more peace in my life, more harmony in my life? How can I do the work? How can I pull away all the stories, all the belief systems, all the crap that keeps us suffering, all the pain? Every time we see stuff happen in the media, we see stuff happen on social media, and we get triggered by it, and we go, oh man, that guy's this, that guy's that, this person's that, blah, 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 blah. And we get all caught up in that. You know what that's there for? For us to realize the work we got to do within ourselves to be able to see why that person's doing that. So then we can then approach that situation from a conscious state of being. Trump says something stupid or silly, you know, on the media, which he does. You know, for the people who think, oh, we're Trump supporters, because they refuse to look at our actual work and they instead just say, hey, you didn't trash talk Trump, therefore you must be a Trump supporter, right? This is another classic. But it's like, okay, you observe something Trump does, he says something stupid. How is that not, in a lot of ways, it reflects how the average person is, right? In a video I produced a long time ago, The Deep Truth Behind Why Trump is President, I talked about how Trump has a certain honesty, a specific, and I went on to explain it in the video. When for some people, it went in one ear and out the other. They were trying to say that I was saying he was just an honest person and he never lied, which is not what I said at all. What I specifically said in the video was that Trump puts himself out there for who he actually is and does not hide it. That is an incredibly refreshing thing to see in politics. Doesn't mean you got to agree with everything he says. It's refreshing because you're not seeing a stone cold lie to your face about who someone truly is. Instead, it's a step forward instead of a step backwards. It's a step forward that says, okay, someone's going to show you what all politicians are really like. They're going to show their true selves. They're going to show, hey, here's what I think and here's who I am. I'm not trying to hide behind bullshit. And you then can decide honestly and transparently whether or not you agree or disagree with the way they are. Now, it doesn't mean you have to get caught up in all the media mumbo jumbo and start hating this person and calling them all these names and trying to put them in boxes and do all this stuff and la da da da. That's all the distraction work where the ego gets involved, the mind gets involved. But you get to see honestly who someone is and go, well, is this how we want to keep moving forward? Is this how we want to keep living? And you ask the questions and you explore what else is possible. Because when we're talking about how we're going to create change, and we're not waiting for something like the event, we're not waiting for something where it's like, oh, something's going to come in and do all the work for us. And we start going, okay, great, Joe, you're talking about it's not going to happen through one little event. What actually has to happen? Simple. We understand through science, right? If we go back to the science of consciousness, it's all there. And this is how you know that over the past 10 years, we as a collective have not been doing the work. And I say this because for the last 10 years, it's been quite popular and known through work that happens through the Institute of Heart Math, for example, the Heart Math Institute, looking at how the heart will impact the environment around us. Or sorry, how through our heart, we're recognizing how the impact of the environment around us, affects our state of being, affects how we feel. And when someone comes in and is feeling a specific emotion, it's felt by others. And the heart feels it. It has an intuitive intelligence. We can know and we can feel and we can, in essence, think through the heart. And that connects with our brain and allows us to process, allows us to understand. Thus, our environment around us has an interconnectedness with us and with others and all that sort of stuff. And the more that connects, the more we create a collective experience that we co-create. We do not create our own reality. We co-create our reality. This is another illusion that has gone through this movement for such a long time, and people, they can't understand. Why is it that I can never create my own reality exactly how I want it? It doesn't work that way. We co-create our reality. Yes, there are aspects that we can individually create within a certain, range to make the sort of the video game work in ways that we've sort of designed it here. But we realistically co-create our reality. And collective consciousness plays a big role on that. We're here together. We're here to experience this together. This isn't about us as individuals. Someone's coming from an individualistic, egotistical point of view when it's always about you create your reality, you get what you want, you create your own riches, you do this, you do that. That's all old world stuff. And so many spiritual teachers are selling to people this idea of, oh, go get everything that you ever wanted in your life. And we're using some of these consciousness ideas and terms so that you can become rich, that you can have what you want. Who cares about everybody else? It is about you getting what you want, you living the life you deserve, These are all made up ideas. All of this is made up ideas. All of it. Yes, there is truth to how some of this stuff functions. I've been using aspects of what you want to call law of attraction or creating your own reality for 10 years. Using this stuff was how C was built. But the one difference and the reason why it all unfolded the way it did was the key thing that is often not taught. I was tapping into what is best for myself and the collective and serving the collective, not what was best for just me. There was other layers. There was the aspect of how can I best serve? What is my role and how do I play within the collective and helping the collective move forward and evolve? And I would tap into that and I would pay attention to that subtle energy and that subtle knowing and those subtle feelings. And you create based on what your heart is desiring. And when I say desire, it's really more so what your heart knows it's here to do, not what your mind goes, I'd love to have that. And I'd love to have this over here, and I'd love to have that. And so therefore, I'm just going to create that reality. And it's like, well, what if your heart wants something completely different? And your heart is a lot more who you are than this thing is. So if your heart truly wants that, and your soul is here to do something specific, do you not think that your soul is going to put in barriers? The deeper aspect of yourself, your higher self that knows what you're here to do, which is you anyway, right? Is it not going to put in barriers to say, hey, yeah, you're not going to get that Ferrari because what the hell are you going to do with that? I'm here to learn how to to be authentic to myself and to go do this specific type of work over here, or to go impact these people in this way, or to go live like that, whatever it may be. We all have unique aspects. But I'm here to do that, and it's like you're focused all the way over here on just getting a material object. Not that it's wrong, but it's like, that's what you're focused on, but this is really why you're here. So you got to figure out how to move through that. Right? And yeah, of course, you can have the Ferrari and this. You can have it all. It's fine. But it's the idea that if you're not paying attention to this at all, which is, for those who are just listening, I'm pointing to the part that's about your inner self, your inner heart, the true aspect of who you are. If you're not tapped into that, my experience and what I've observed over the past while, you ain't creating anything, Well, in reality, yes, you are creating. You're creating the exact experience you need to realize, hey, it's time to go deeper and see more deeply, see beyond just the basicness of all of this and actually get into the core of who we truly are. Going back to the event here, how this relates is this comes down to us having to take action, do work, shift the consciousness. We affect, going back to consciousness, the science of consciousness. We understand that we affect our environment. We understand that we collectively create our reality. We understand that as a collective, we have an impact on our immediate reality. Crime rate studies, for example, is a great example of how collective consciousness impacts a specific thing when we're focused on something, right? Well, what happens if we're not really focused on something, but we're living unconsciously? Well, guess what? Those who are able to see that, oh yeah, the collective's living completely distracted and completely unconscious, we can now take advantage and manipulate them because they're collectively distracted and unconscious. They're not even going to see what's going on. This is why, to understand our reality, you got to bring in the understanding of what's going on in the quote-unquote conspiratorial side or the truth-seeking side of our world, where we start looking at the cabal, we look at the deep state, we look at what's happening there. Because that is a huge piece to the puzzle that still a lot of people refuse to look at because, going back to what year is this that I say this happened, whatever it was, 2013 to 2015, we programmed ourselves with the idea that, oh, well, that's all negative to look at that. You can't look at that stuff. That's negative. That's dark. If you look at that stuff, you only create more of it. False. If you stay unconscious all the time and we don't know what's going on ever, and we still believe our world is what it is, we're in the illusion, we're in the Truman Show. Look at the Truman Show, for example. Right? This is a perfect example of this. The Truman Show. For all intents and purposes, he was living a happy life. He woke up every morning. He was like, hey, hey, Bill, hey, whatever, la-di-da. He was always happy, always like jovial, going around, repeating the same thing over and over again, right? He was happy all the time. But what happened? He was living a lie. He was living something that wasn't about understanding the full gamut of experience, understanding really where all of this stuff goes. On one hand, in the spiritual side, we're always teaching, seek happiness, be happy all the time, try and be happy. You got to be happy. Here's how you can be happy, 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 happy. Well, the Truman Show is a great example of if you're just happy all the time, you're missing out on huge aspects to life. And there's still a deeper search for something more. And in the Truman Show, that search led him to realize a very basic illusion that was being imposed upon him and manipulated in the exact same way it's happening in our world, where he was having what are sort of like inauthentic forms of happiness. It's like, how long am I just going to kind of repeat this same thing over and over again? And, hey, Bill, whatever, until I realize, like, this isn't what I'm here for. I'm not here to just, okay, wake up, go to work, do my thing. Hey, donut, fucking coffee, whatever it is. You're actually here to evolve and grow and change. We're here to change the human experience right now. For those who are saying, you're human, just be human. We're not here to do that right now. It's a different time. We're going through an evolution here. It's happening on a mass scale. We're here to evolve. We're here to pay attention to what's going on. We're here to get our heads out of our ass when it comes to this spiritual community that refuses to look at the reality of what's happening in our world. Right? And so a lot of other people are doing the exact same thing. We're on the other side of the equation. We're out in saying, oh, I don't want to focus on that stuff. The government would never lie to us. This would never happen. Got to pull our heads out and say, hey, what's really going on here? What's really happening? Wake up, get in the boat, fight through the storm. And the Truman Show. Hit the edge of the wall, realize, oh my gosh. And then what happens? He opens the door, the light shines through, and he walks through. He doesn't know exactly what he's walking into, but there's light on the other side. What does that light mean? Could mean anything to anybody. But I think the analogy and the metaphor that I like to pull out of it is that it's like you're walking into something that is what the next step is for us. It's inviting. The light like that is inviting. It is the next step. Our world right now, from a surface level point of view, is getting extreme. It's getting intense. It's getting what we might call dark or negative, because we're closing in on ending an old state of being. Some of us are fighting and holding on to it and saying, no, I don't want to let go. I don't want to let go. I'm Republican. I'm Democrat. As much as I see that I can't be these things, I'm trying to hold on to it. You know, we're fighting so hard to hold on to something that is dying. It's dying. We have to let go of that. And we have to realize this has all been an illusion. How do you understand the illusion? You awaken to the reality of who you truly are and explore consciousness, right? Beyond that, you start to realize how the world truly functions and go, oh yeah, no, we were living an illusion. We were living a lie. And that's great. That was part of the process that we needed to go through. There's nothing positive or negative about it. This is all made up games. We start to realize that we have the power, and to be empowered, we got to do the work. So when it comes to the event, in my view, I see so many comments on these videos. I see so many people talking about it. Some of the big questions that come up is like, oh, have you heard of the event? Yeah, I've heard of it. So when do you think it's going to happen? I don't care. How are you feeling right now? Oh, I feel like the world's like pretty crazy, this, that, whatever. Okay, great. How are you processing that? How do you work through that within yourself? How do you have conversations with others? How do you help others work through their stuff as they're feeling it? I don't know. That's what we're here to do. That's what this process is, right? And so, to sort of sum up this event situation in a way where we can be accurate about it, from at least the way I view it, is yes, there are cosmic energies that affect our consciousness and that are evolving our planet, our collective consciousness, and us. But we are a crucial part of that puzzle in our own conscious awareness. The energies only go so far. They help to create an environment that requires us to take action. They do not come and do the work. They may shake you like this and make it so it's like, oh my God, so much is changing. And suddenly you're like, okay, I'm paying attention. What's going on? And then the energies, they go, okay, I did my job. And yeah, you got to figure it out. And we got to walk on our own 2 feet. The defeating the cabal, as it talks about in this whole thing, creating new governments and advanced technology, all this stuff. You think the energies are just going to come in? Okay, well, we're going to come in, we're going to defeat the cabal, and then we're going to go and we're going to put in the new tech. No. What's going to happen is the energies shake us up. We go, and this is happening already. It shakes us up. We go, okay, I see some of my bullshit coming to the surface now. Okay, I look at it. I have a greater awareness. I'm paying a closer attention. I start to see how things work. I see how my thought patterns work. I see how my belief systems work. I see that most of the way we operate is just stories we tell ourselves. I start letting go of that crap. And I start getting back to this point of view where I'm like, okay, I am infinite potential. I am more. There is something deeper aspect, and I explore that, and I keep exploring. I keep flowing through that. Then suddenly, I start to realize, okay, so there is a cabal. There is things that are happening. There are certain manipulations that are taking place. I see that a lot more clearly now. I recognize that that's happening. All right, so I see the role they play now. I understand why that's there, what that's helped me to feel. I understand what that's allowing them to feel. I understand, I get that. Now we got to evolve beyond that. So how do we evolve beyond that? Well, we start removing the need for them. The role they're playing can only exist when we're unconscious. The more conscious we become as a collective, their role is unnecessary. It's like, when you have what you call, you're building a structure, right? And you're putting up, you have to put cement in the bottom, for example, footing, so that the structure can be solid and stand on its own, over time. But you have to kind of support and hold up the structure for a period of time. So you build, whether it be a temporary wall or a temporary support, usually just thrown together with some scrap wood, and you put up these two pieces, and it's only meant to hold it for a very short period of time in easy weather conditions, right? So, the support's there. But then when you've built the foundation and things are solid, and you've finished creating the solid foundation, and got the supports ready to go, you pull out the temporary support because it didn't need to be there anymore. You didn't have to go and fight it and beat the shit out of it and fucking yell at it and do all this stuff. You just unscrewed it, okay, and you put it over there, and it's done. That's it. Right? And it's the same with the cabal. Oh, okay, we realize, what's going on? All right. So they want to play that game. Cool. You go play that game. We are going to keep awakening. We're going to keep doing the work. We're going to keep shifting collective consciousness, because collective consciousness has an impact on our reality. Why is the cabal still there? Because collective consciousness is voting that, yes, we still need the cabal because they still play a role. So we need to evolve. We need to keep waking up collectively. We need to do the work. In order to do the work, we got to be at peace within ourselves. We got to be able to look at the cabal and say, this isn't about creating another us versus them scenario. That's all old world, old consciousness. Easiest way to move through this stuff is to ask ourselves, am I feeling peace? Am I creating polarities again? Am I creating fights again? Am I creating right and wrong again? Am I creating should and shouldn't again when I go through this stuff? Because if I am, then it's likely the case that I'm still just operating from the old world. You can observe and recognize, hey, I don't want that to continue. I know it doesn't feel right. And that be more powerful than just yelling at that thing and being like, oh, you're so terrible. You can't, what does that do? Right? There's no power in that. It's just you yelling at it, you meeting it where it's at. That's all that is. So we got to evolve beyond that. We got to learn the lesson that things are trying to show us. And this event, in my view, in a lot of ways, when I look at this, when I observe this, when I feel intuitively, when I explore this stuff, I've seen this before. I've seen the same type of stuff been perpetuating for years. I see a lot of times as we follow this stuff, as we get involved in all the commenting, it produces the same type of stuff. It's this idea of sitting back and waiting. The event's going to take care of it. We got to get on our horse, and we got to do this. This is what this is about. We need to buck up here and do the work. And that's why Collective Evolution, we produce the media the way we produce it. And this is why I said at the beginning of the show, hopefully by the end of this, you understand the importance of conscious media. Because we're looking at the world through a standpoint that includes the deepest understandings of who we are. We don't suddenly take spirituality and consciousness and put it over here and put world events over here and, these are not the same thing. No, we go, all of this is part of life. We need to understand what's happening in life through the lens of who we truly are and what's really going on, especially if we want to change something. So we include it all. And that makes some people uncomfortable. Some people go, oh my God, it's like metaphysical bullshit. And other people go, oh my God, it's super negative to talk about what's going on in the world. The world is so negative. And it's like you reveal the stories and belief systems on both sides. Through those people, it's stories and belief systems. So we include it all. We encompass it all. That's what this is about, is being able to look at the world through a way that is actually going to create the change we all know is possible in our hearts and we all know is where we're moving forward to. And as we just got to keep actually doing the work, pull out of the extremities. So that's it. That's all, and if you resonate with that, if you believe in that, this is why we're saying we got to support this form of media, because independent media, which is what we're doing, is being systematically sort of pulled back and stopped. Now, we're not falling victim to this. Oh my God, this is happening, right? We're recognizing, okay, it's happening. We realize that there are still roles to be played where people will sort of hinder and stop things. But we're taking action and saying, yeah, we're just going to go play our own game over here. Let's come together. Let's create a solid future for conscious media and continue to disseminate it with or without places like Facebook. They don't need to be part of the equation. That's okay. They're doing what they want to do. They're reflecting to humanity what they choose to reflect, and we can learn from that. We don't need to hate them for it. They're just doing what they're going to do. We have the choice to go over here and do our own thing and support and create and do this together and make sure that we can continue to disseminate this stuff. That's it. That's all. So if you want to support that, if you believe in that, you want to support that, head on over either to our website. You can donate right in our menu there. Become a supporter of Conscious Media. You can go to explorers.collective-evolution.com/CMM and become a supporter. You can read all about everything that we're doing, why we're being transparent about it. We're flipping the script here. This isn't about we're here to kind of convince you to do something. No, we're going to put it on the table. It's honest. This is what we're doing. You look at it. You like it. Let's support it. If not, hey, we're going to keep doing it anyway. That's it. That's all. We may be able to do less. We may have less reach. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I believe within myself that what we're creating here and where we're going, this is the future, right? This is what is going to help shift humanity. This is what's going to help move things forward. So we do it. We don't get caught up in all the censorship stuff. It's happening, but we don't get caught up in the emotion of it. That's it. That's all. I think I've covered everything I wanted to say about the event here. If you want to read the article where I go into kind of some deeper detail, I get into, not necessarily deeper detail, but I get into some other stuff, different things that I didn't really talk about in this because I talked about a few things I wanted to focus on a little differently. It's called The Event what's really happening and what you need to know about it. You can check that out on Collective Evolution. You could just search that into Google and I'm sure it'll come up. And that's it. That's all. I don't know what else to say on this. That's pretty much everything I got. Thanks again for listening. Thanks again for tuning into this podcast. Be sure to subscribe, share, leave a review, help spread this word around if it's meaningful to you and you think it's important. Don't be afraid to send it to people that you're not sure if they're on the fence. Is it okay for me to send this to someone or not? We got to have that empowerment. We got to have that within ourselves to know it's like, yeah, I can send this to one of my friends. They think I'm crazy. Hey, no big deal. We'll talk about it. It's that simple. We'll talk about it. I'll work through my stuff, right? It's a reality. So many people stay closeted about what they are passionate about, what they believe in. Where is that going to lead? Where does that lead? We stay closeted our whole lives. We don't follow what we truly want to do. I made a choice 10 years ago to walk away from the beaten path, if you want to call it that. It wasn't easy, but I also didn't take the difficulty too seriously. I knew, hey, it is going to be a little bit tough for a little bit. People are going to think I'm crazy, but I did. And things are okay. And I would say a good chunk of those people, probably 80%, if I had to guess based on direct experience, respect me now for having done what I had done, even though they thought I was crazy for a couple of years. No big deal. You do what you got to do. Be inspired. It's possible. Everything is always possible. I've always said that. And, that's it. That's all. I've probably said that like 600 times now, this podcast. Anyway, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on the Collective Evolution Podcast. Peace.